This video is brought to you by your contributions on Patreon. Click here to lend your support to History Education Online today.
John White was terrified. He had promised to return with supplies to the new colony where his baby granddaughter would be. He said he would return in a number of months, but it had been 3 years. When his ship landed on Roanoke Island, the colony had been long deserted. The buildings had been torn down, but there was no sign of a battle. The place was almost entirely empty. Almost. The only two remaining things that White saw were a fence post that had the word Croatoan carved into it, and the letters CRO carved into a nearby tree. I'm Matt from the channel Conjecture, and today we're going to step back and look at the lost colony of Roanoke. Roanoke holds a special place in the history of America, England, and colonization. It was the first attempt by England to settle land in what would eventually become the 13 colonies that would then eventually become the United States. Its total disappearance has been a mystery as long as there has been an America, and the failure of the colony was one of the major setbacks to British colonization of North America. In 1584, Queen Elizabeth gave Walter Raleigh, an aristocrat, writer, poet, soldier, politician, courtier, spy, explorer, and really collector of professions, a charter to establish a colony in the New World. Their intent was to reap the riches of the Americas and act as a base of operations for privateering against Spanish ships. A few early ventures had failed, so eventually Walter hired John White, who had been on the previous expeditions, to bring about 115 colonists to the Roanoke colony located in modern-day North Carolina. Oh, by the way, this Roanoke colony was the second attempt to try and build something here. A previous expedition in 1585 failed due to lack of food and friction with the natives. No, not that kind of friction. Well, maybe, I don't actually know. Whatever. When White checked up on them just a year later, the colony had been deserted. White and his crew found no signs of them except for a spooky skeleton. So John White's new colony was established in 1587, and White's granddaughter, Virginia Dare, was born there. She was the first English child born in the Americas that we know of, which is why the county the island is now located in is called Dare County. After setting up the colony, John White left later that same year to go back to England. Some sources have said it was to get supplies, while others claimed he was returning to ask for help since one of the colonists had been slightly killed by a Native American. After White left, England found themselves in a major war with Spain, and they essentially commandeered all of their ships to be used to fight the war. No one can use ships for any other reason, including returning back to your New World colony. After a few unsuccessful attempts, and when White could get his ship again, he returned to America in 1590, 3 years after he left. What greeted him, though, was an astonishing mystery. An abandoned colony with no signs of life. All homes and structures had been taken apart. John White had told the colonists before he left to carve a Maltese cross into a tree if they were forced out against their will, but he couldn't find one anywhere. The only things he could find were what I mentioned before, the word Croatoan carved into a fence post and the letters CRO carved into a nearby tree. White imagined they moved to Croatoan Island, now called Hatteras Island, which is also where the Croatoan tribe lived. However, he didn't get a chance to search there before having to go back to England and was never able to return to search for any of the colonists. As far as we know, no one ever saw those colonists again. So what did happen to the people of Roanoke, the entire colony? Historians have theories based on lots of different evidence, ranging from archaeology to climate. The commonly supported theories speculate that the colonists assimilated with nearby native tribes, likely on the Croatoan Island. They probably did this just to survive. Tree ring evidence points out that the years they were there were incredibly poor for farming, and White hadn't come back yet with supplies. They may even have assumed that White died on his voyage. And there have been many artifacts found on Croatoan Island, from rapier hilts to writing slates, that likely point to the presence of 16th century English colonists. There also was a more recent discovery just 5 years ago, in 2012. This is one of John White's maps, but when you shine a black light underneath it, you can see there is a hidden X northwest of the colony. This may have been a fort. Archaeological evidence strongly suggests English colonials were indeed at this location, but there likely weren't more than 12 individuals. So the whole colony definitely didn't go there or anything like that. There are some other more interesting theories that could explain the disappearance. It is possible that the colonists were killed by the Native Americans and the evidence was just really well hidden. After all, the Native Americans had 3 years to dismantle houses and structures, and there were only 115 colonists. It's possible the Native Americans attacked the colonists so quickly and without warning, they didn't have time to carve a Maltesian cross into a tree to indicate that they were being forced out. Maybe the Croatoan and CRO carvings weren't directions, but warnings. It's also possible that when John White came back, the colony was there, but everyone had perished. It was a tough growing season, and he hadn't come back in a long time to get food or supplies. John White had a charter to colonize land, and ultimately he needed a successful colony to keep it. If he came back and said that everyone had died, then this, along with other previous failed attempts, may have discouraged people from coming to the New World and he could lose his charter. So maybe the lost colony of Roanoke wasn't lost, maybe it was just covered up. This might explain why the X on John White's map was intentionally hidden. I do want to say that the evidence here is sparse, as with many historical theories. There are a few problems with this theory, namely that there were several ships and all of their crews were with John White, and no one seemed to leak anything that would have indicated some massive cover-up, because the bigger a conspiracy, the more difficult to keep a secret. There are, of course, other less supported theories, like that the colonists fled from raiding natives and then died when outside of the colony, either by attempting to cross the Chesapeake, or drowning, or succumbing to hypothermia. The one thing that scholars all do agree on is that there really is no great conclusive evidence. While we're still finding new artifacts and hidden patches on John White's map, this century-old mystery still hangs over our head without a good answer. Its ominous remains have inspired many a tale, and it is even the subject of the most recent season of American Horror Story. There are projects actively searching to uncover more archaeological evidence, but until then we might just have to explore and wonder, like John White.
Hey everyone, I want to thank Matt from Conjecture for co-writing and narrating this episode of Step Back. If you click up in the corner, you can go to his channel and see what he does. My personal recommendations, if you like Step Back, are why blue is associated with boys and pink for girls, the whole concept of 72 virgins in Islam, and asking whether men or women started the fashion trend of high heels. If you click up in the corner or check the pinned comment, I will even make you a playlist. If this is your first time here and you want to see more history videos, subscribe to this channel. Double props if you ring my bell here. Also, if there's a history buff in your life, be sure to share this video with them. It works perfectly as a gift for holidays, birthdays, weddings, or the occasional funeral. And of course, come back soon for more Step Back.